Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. I am a sales coach and trainer, and I founded the Sales Pro Network 3 years ago to elevate the profession of sales. If you've been with us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I do a live broadcast where we interview somebody who can add value to the profession of sales, and today is no exception. Our guest today is a sales consultant. She's a fractional VP of sales and a chief revenue officer who works with small to medium businesses. She helps companies make money, save money, and solve problems with underperforming salespeople. She's with Sales Acceleration. Please welcome our guest, Susan Cashion. Good morning, Susie.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, and I'm really glad to see you, and I'm excited to be speaking with you today. Before I get to the 1,000,001 questions I have for you, could you maybe give us the 2 or 3 minute version of your background, what brought you up to this point?
Absolutely. Thank you. I actually spent my entire 30-plus year career in sales. So I started right out of college carrying a bag in one of the largest territories across the U.S. for a Fortune 100 CPG company. And I like to refer to that company as just an amazing world-class training organization, which really helped me over a 10-year period through holding 7 different sales positions, sales leadership positions, to master the art of sales, and then also take on more leadership type positions where I could translate everything that I had learned to the people that I was then managing. I helped the company actually through an integration process when they were purchased by another large CPG company. And then I went to work for the next 14 years in a startup in the medical healthcare business for an optical company. And why that was so amazing was that I saw every single growth stage in that company over a 14-year period. I translated all of the skill sets and everything that I learned in that world-class CPG company into setting the foundation for this startup. And about 8 years into that, I had the opportunity to establish a new go-to-market strategy and lead a turnaround initiative for that company. Our sales had somewhat stagnated. We had a lot of economic pressures. And so I had that opportunity to really turn that company around and build a more solid sales foundation from the one that we had built 9 years prior to that. And little did I know, I was actually working myself out of a job, because 5 years later, we increased our growth trajectory by 30% year over year, and we sold the company. And the company exited. So it's been an extremely rewarding career in sales. And then about 7 years ago, I decided to then translate all of that experience into my own consulting firm called GrowthWise Consulting, powered by Sales Acceleration.
Got it. Wow. Fascinating. And you mentioned CPT a couple of times. Would you like to tell everybody what that stands for in case they don't know?
Oh, yeah. Consumer packaged goods.
There you go. One of the things that like you, I'm sure I'm talking to lots of different people, and I think we can pretty much all agree we're living in, I'd say, uncertain times, between politics and wars and the economy.
Yes.
You focus a lot with companies about selling in uncertain times. If you could summarize selling in uncertain times in maybe one word, what would that word be?
I would say adaptability, hands down. It's having the ability to pivot your strategy. I always say that your approach that got you here is not necessarily going to be the same approach that's going to get you there. So it really means evangelizing your company's core story and value proposition, and then adapting that message to meet so that it resonates with your core audience and the people that you're selling to. And so, it's understanding who your target audience is and adapting your message to how they want to receive it. So for an example, I was coaching a team of dental sales reps, and they had the most expensive new product. It was a device that helped the dental hygienist to more ergonomically and comfortably do the work cleaning people's teeth. And so I was challenged with helping them to actually sell more of this very high priced new product that was entering the market. And they were selling features and benefits. And in uncertain times and in difficult times when money is tight for business owners, it's important that you adapt your story. And I call it education-based marketing. So you are actually selling a value proposition. It's not the features and benefits, but it's how it's going to help. And so how I help the sales team to kind of turn around their messaging was to share with the dentist who would be purchasing it what this ergonomically comfortable device, how it was actually going to help them. One, reducing work comp claims. Two, that's absenteeism. So it really on the back end translated to more stable revenue because those things were going to be taken off the table if they utilized and purchased this particular device. So that's an example of adapting your story to reach the particular audience.
Interesting. You said you're not talking about features and benefits. You're talking about what it can do for you, but isn't that the benefits?
Yes, but it's taking it one step further and really talking about the value proposition and why that value proposition is important to a particular dentist. It might not be as the feature and the benefit might be important to the dental hygienist, but what's more important to the dentist who's actually purchasing that is how it's going to help him make money, save money, and of course, solve a problem.
Gotcha. Okay. By the way, one of our viewers, John Hill, said 30 plus years in sales. She looks too young. She must have started when she was 9 years old.
Oh, thank you, John. You're too kind. You made my day.
There's a good start to your day. By the way, if you are watching us live and you have any comments or questions for Susan, please do put them in the chat and I'll pass them along. So in times that we can agree are uncertain, what are the most important skills that salespeople and sales teams need besides that adaptability?
Well, my opinion, sales requires both skill and will. And will sometimes is the motivation, and it's a little bit harder to train to. So I'm going to focus more on the tactical skills. And of course, that's the fundamental selling skills. That's what, Jeff, you do every day, right? Is teaching the core selling, fundamental selling skills, which I call selling DNA. But aside from really mastering those tactical skills, it's being prepared and, not showing up and throwing up per se, and actually preparing questions and really setting an intention for, if this is a successful sales call, what is it that I need to glean from this conversation? What information do I need to gather to better understand and predict the outcome? And then adapt my story to the needs of my buyer. It's selling deep and wide in an organization. People come and go in companies. And so I think creating raving fans within an organization and selling and getting to know more people in a company is extremely important, because at least you might have a raving fan in the company if the primary buyer ends up exiting the business. I also think it's really important to ask for referrals. Your best salesperson is a current customer. If they're happy and you've made them a raving fan of your product or service, they're going to help you to evangelize, the benefits that your product brings. So asking for referrals and then warm introductions. And then, of course, being flexible in the negotiation process.
Yep. Now, I know those of you who are watching live can see me nodding. Those of you who are listening on a podcast can't, but I'm nodding in agreement to everything Susie says, because Susie, to me, what you're saying is it really boils down to the fundamentals. Stop trying to be so fancy, get to know people, ask questions. And I love what you said. One of the things that I always teach people and do myself before sales calls, I think about what information do I need to get today in order to consider the sales call successful? Well, if I know that, I now know what questions to ask. And to me, questions are the key to selling. It's not your brilliant presentation skills. It's not your strong closing skills. It's how do you have a conversation with somebody where you can truly uncover what they're doing now and how you can help them do it better. So I love hearing this stuff.
100%.
You actually have an operating system for sales, and it's called
Yeah.
BOSS, BOSS. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so it stands for Building Outstanding Sales Skills, and it really provides salespeople with a framework for what it takes to have an exceptional career in sales. So I focus on the 4 Ps just to make it really simple. I love acronyms. The first is personal development, and because sales is such a mental game, you've got to be on the field every single day and show up and be your absolute best. So it's absolutely critical if you're going to be successful in sales to really develop a very strong sense of self, understand your why, what gets you out of bed every single morning, and what's going to put your best foot forward so that once you are on the field and you put your jersey on, how are you going to show up to your buyer? One of the things that I do every morning is I call it, my miracle morning, and I pray. I write in my gratitude journal, or at least, I say 3 things that I'm very grateful for, because that really sets the stage for a positive mindset. I intersize, so I read 10 pages in a book, or if I'm rushing out to see a client, what I'll do is put a podcast on. Sometimes it's your podcast, right? So you're intercising, you're doing something to expand your mind, exercising, and then doing something by the end of the day to serve others. So that's the personal development. The professional development, of course, is your tactical skills, making sure that you are actually mastering the art of selling. The third is process. And I know a lot of companies establish a sales process, but you need to have one yourself. Sales is an autonomous game. You're out there, you're on your own. So you've got to have a process. How do you attract new business? What does your pre-call prep look like? Are you preparing those questions? Are you setting an intention? Are you coming back at the end of the day and taking notes and transcribing those into your CRM if you're not using an AI tool like Otter during a sales call? So process is really important. And it also, once you have a process established, it really helps you to better predict the outcome of a sales call if you're always doing something the same way. The fourth thing is performance, and that is, what are you holding yourself accountable for? There's lead measures and there's lag measures. Your lag measures are you hitting your quota? But what are the lead measures that lead up to, and what lead measures are more activity-based, behavioral-based. So what are you doing every day? Are you cutting out at the end of the day and not making that last call? And so it's really holding yourself accountable for your own performance. So those are the 4 areas that it really, really are critical that I help to coach people and frame their minds so that they can have a successful career in sales.
I love that. And I'm so glad that you talked first about the mental game. With my coaching clients, to me, it's 35, 40% mental, and 60, 65% are the skills and the tools and techniques. But it's mentally draining to be in sales, because typically we hear no more often than we hear yes. And we do have to reach out to people who we don't know and establish relationships. And it's very hard. And if you're not mentally strong, if you're not in the right place, and if also I call it the come from, I'm pointing to my gut right now, where you're coming from, which to me is your job to go out and earn a commission, or is your job to serve people? I say you earn a commission by serving people. If you're just there, I call it, if you've got commission breath, prospects can smell it. When your come from is right, when it's like, let's see if I can actually help you. And if I can't, I'll let you know and I'll introduce you to somebody else. But if I can, let's engage in that discussion. I think you're 100% right. If you don't start your day right, if you're not mentally strong, it doesn't matter how good you are at selling, you're not going to succeed, at least not long term. And you mentioned something a few moments ago, which I'm talking about all the time too, and I'm hearing about AI. I get a lot of questions, and usually the essence of it is, Jeff, is AI going to replace us in sales? My answer is
No.
not anytime soon, at least. Maybe somewhere down the line, but no time soon. But I do believe that the salesperson and the sales organization that embraces AI and uses it as the tool it currently is and what it's going to be, because it's evolving every day, I think they're going to succeed over somebody who doesn't. So you mentioned it. What are some of the AI tools that you're finding helpful for salespeople?
One of my favorites is KnowledgeNet AI. And so they are completely new on the AI landscape in the last year. And what they are is like a relationship mapping system that helps salespeople to make warm introductions. And so it's an application that plugs into both your CRM and your LinkedIn. And it will scrape your LinkedIn and find out all your first level connections. And then it will tell you if you are interested, say you have like your ideal client profile and a list of prospective clients or companies that you want to get into, and you don't have a way in. So technically that'd be a cold outreach. If you want a warm outreach, what KnowledgeNet does is actually tells you who in your network of first level contacts are connected with people, and they can make a warm introduction. And the back end of KnowledgeNet actually has the email sequencing and enables you to do that through your CRM. So that one is super cool. And then I mentioned Otter, which is great because it can, record your conversations. And then if you're doing Zoom calls, of course, Fireflies and Read AI is also an excellent one. Because I actually just copy and paste those notes into my CRM. So I don't actually even have to write the notes of what the conversation was. So it really helps to save time. Another super cool one is Evy AI, EVYAI. It's a LinkedIn plugin that helps to comment on posts and really improve your own personal LinkedIn profile. It'll scrape your profile, and through AI will make recommendations on how to optimize your profile, make it look more professional. And then it also helps you to put together some really thought-provoking comments and or just write posts, right? And so through AI, it will write it a little bit more succinctly and maybe in a more professional manner. And what's also really cool about that is the fact that you can actually change how you want it to sound and come across. So Evy AI is an awesome one. And as I'm talking about LinkedIn, there is an app called Secta AI, which helps with professional LinkedIn pictures. And so all you do on your phone is you upload like 5 selfies. And within 2 or 3 hours, they will send you 250 professional looking pictures. And if you want some fun ones, if you not want to wear red and you want to wear green, you put all of that into the app. And then it just sends you it's like having a professional photographer. So I love that one as well. And it's super important that you put a professional image out there online. And so, hey, if you need a new LinkedIn profile picture, use Secta AI. And there's so many others out there.
Love that. And yes, I could not agree more. Not unsurprisingly, you need a professional picture on your LinkedIn profile. You want to hold up a fish or something like that. That's great for Facebook or other social media, but you're a business person. And the thing I always advise people to do is remember, your prospects are almost definitely going to check out your LinkedIn profile before they meet with you, possibly before they even agree to meet with you. But certainly once you set a meeting with them, they're going to go take a look. If you're holding a fish and they happen to love fishing, maybe that's going to establish some rapport, but that's not going to be it for most people. Have a nice professional photo. And look, 100%. It doesn't cost very much to get a professional headshot these days. I mean, it's under $200 in most cases. And today's phones are so good that, just have somebody take a nice picture, smiling, facing the camera, well-dressed, it makes a big difference. By the way, I could also not agree with you more about Evy AI. I love it. Just coincidentally, the guy who invented it, he's a dear friend of mine. I spoke to him just yesterday. Brilliant guy, and I love Evy AI. Anything that makes my job easier and makes me more efficient, I'm in favor of. The one little thing I'll say about Evy AI or any other AI, if you're going to use it for writing, don't just take what it writes and immediately post it or immediately send it to somebody. Make it your own, because AI is not perfect yet. It's leaps and bounds day by day, but it still needs to come from you. People do business with people, not robots.
Yes.
One of the things that's important is often salespeople are chasing the wrong prospects. They take that shotgun approach. So it's important. How do we identify our best prospects? How do we actually go about identifying our target audience?
It really starts with a company's core story. And a company's core story is who they are, what is their value proposition, and how do they differentiate their product or service from a sea of others, from the competition. So once you and or the company has defined what the value proposition is, then you can identify who your target audience is or ideal client profile is based on what audience that is going your product or service is going to resonate with. And so your target audience could be, and as you're identifying your ICP, it could be a job title. It could be, is it public or private sector? What's the growth rate of the company or the annual size of the company, the annual revenue? Those also help to identify your ideal client profile and who to prospect, the number of employees, the size of the company, geographic location, things of that nature. So it's not just industry, but you can really narrow your focus by considering some of those other elements.
Yeah, I think it's also important in identifying your ideal client to think about what's right for you, not just who's good for you, but what's right for you. Who do you want to work with? I find too often, especially service providers, consultants, people like that, coaches, they end up taking on a lot of business and they don't like their clients. They're not enjoying the engagement. And I'd rather not have a client have the time to go search for better ones 100%. Than having bad clients.
Yes.
It just doesn't make sense. And I have a very strict set of criteria for who I want to work with and will work with and who I won't. And I know that many, if not most salespeople, they operate out of scarcity. And it's like, oh, if I don't take this deal, another one might not come along. I think that's wrong. When you clearly identify who's right for you and who you're right for, then you know how to attract those people, how to reach out to those people, and you recognize them when they show up. So again, could not agree more with you. One of the things a phrase people throw around all the time is sales playbook. And I'm not sure that everybody knows what that is. And I believe that you help companies develop a sales playbook, yes. If I'm right. Could you just explain what is a sales playbook? Why is it important? And how does a sales organization go about developing one?
So a sales playbook is essentially a repository of the company's value proposition, who their target audience is or their ICP. It also includes messaging. Once you've identified that, it includes messaging for LinkedIn prospecting, for email prospecting, talk tracks, so that if you are having a one-on-one conversation with your ultimate buyers, it's really getting the entire sales team and the leadership team singing from the same sheet of music. And so it's a physical book, and it really presents itself as a playbook. Here's how we do business. Here's our sales strategy, our process, the talk tracks that are going to help you out in the field. And it actually really helps to onboard and really cut down a lot of the time it takes to onboard a new sales rep, because you can hand them, this playbook, and they can read it and follow it, so that if their coach or their manager isn't working with them out in the field, they can reference it.
And that's good for both salespeople and sales managers, because you've got, I know that you know this, but when you're a sales manager, a sales leader, if you've got 18 people doing 18 different things, it's very difficult to manage. When you have a sales playbook, everybody's on the same page. It makes your life much easier and makes you more effective at coaching and helping the people that you're trying to get to achieve or exceed their quota. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I've worked for back in corporate days, some very large companies, and we didn't have a formal sales playbook that really tied everything together. And so I absolutely love providing that to my clients, because it really ties the entire strategy process together and really it helps with efficiency and cuts down onboarding time.
And I'm curious about something. When you go into a new organization and start working with them and you're developing a sales playbook, are you taking your material, your stuff that you're teaching them, and that's the sales playbook, or are you taking what they do and you're adapting it, or is it a combination of both?
You know, through AI, you can actually put together an amazing playbook, and it will help you. It will help you in that regard, pulling it all together. But the first step in putting a playbook together is actually doing a deep dive discovery. And so there's a list of questions and conversation that I have with my clients in order for me to be able to put that together. A client really has to know what their value proposition is. I can't craft that, and AI can't craft that. It also, they need to let me know, like, who is their ideal client profile, and then what the AI does is actually helps with the messaging on the back end once you've established those foundational elements that are unique to a particular company, product, and service.
Yep. You mentioned AI more than once, and I'm in my head. I'm going, yeah, I have to agree. It's really incredible what AI can do if you become a prompt engineer. If you know the right things to say to it, the right prompts to write, you can do it. It can do just about anything. And again, it's not perfect. You still need to read it over and adapt it to yourself. But I recently was thinking, I should put together a program on AI. So I went to ChatGPT and said, Jeff Goldberg is a sales expert in coaching and training and sales management, and he's putting together a program on AI. What should be an outline for a program on AI? And, a minute later, I've got 5 pages of here's what would be good in a program about AI. Now, I'm adapting it, but just amazing in terms of how much it knows. I mean, it's obviously taking things off the web, and you have to be careful to make sure they're correct, but it's such a time saver. I mean, that would have taken me days or weeks to come up with on my own, and it's in a matter of maybe 2 minutes. Excuse me, I've got the outline that I need to build on. So I love that stuff.
Yeah, it actually helps me. It helps my clients to save money because I don't have to spend hours and hours compiling all this information. So you mentioned prompts. Prompts are so critical with AI, and knowing what to ask, AI in order, I guess it's GIGO, whatever you put in, you get out, right?
Yeah. And I think the other thing and I'm not an expert in AI, actually the guy who invented Evie AI is, but it's not just about the initial prompt. It's once it spits out the information, what's the next prompt? Because it keeps learning by everything you tell it. It's really, really fascinating. I apologize for the sniffing and coughing. I have seasonal allergies, and today seems the day that they're actually kicking in. So I think I can make it another 33 minutes.
It's all good.
So many salespeople that I run into are on a roller coaster. Excuse me, a good month, a bad month, good quarter, bad quarter. What can salespeople and sales organizations do to avoid the ups and downs of selling?
Well, I like to say if you have a robust pipeline and you have consistent activity, outreach, you're increasing the opportunities that you're adding to your pipeline, which then reduces the likelihood of having that roller coaster effect of closing deals. And so, it's utilizing the data and the CRM to work for you so that you're entering all your opportunities, and you understand what stage of the sales funnel that they're in. And, it keeps your activity constantly moving forward. So I think it's utilizing CRM, understanding that, especially in uncertain times, you've got to make that extra call of the day, not cut out early, right? You go above and beyond and constantly drop new opportunities into your CRM or your pipeline. So it's having a robust pipeline that can really help to level the roller coaster ride that you're talking about.
Yeah. To me, the one thing, and you said it really, the one thing that evens you out, because you don't want big check, little check, big check, no check. Mm-hmm. And I think we've all been there. When I take on a client that says that's their problem, I'm tired of the ups and downs, inevitably they're inconsistent with their prospecting. If you're effective with your prospecting, that's great, but it's got to be consistent, because anytime you stop prospecting, and let's face it, most of us don't enjoy that part of our job. And it's the first thing to go when we get busy. I'm too busy to prospect right now. I got too much else going on. Well, the problem is somewhere down the line, you can't make money when you stop prospecting. Even if you have the best of intentions, even if you are super busy, you still have to make some time to prospect. I say every single day, even if it's just a little bit, because anytime you stop, you can't get paid down the line. And that's really I always say sales is not rocket science, and it's not. There's some fundamental things like being consistent and being effective that really do make a difference. And we're halfway through an interview with Susan Cashion, who is with Sales Acceleration. She is a sales consultant, fractional VP of Sales and Chief Revenue Officer. And we'll be back in 60 seconds after this word from our sponsor, me. Hi, I'm Jeff Goldberg, the founder of the Sales Pro Network. For nearly 5 decades, I've been selling, managing, coaching, and training salespeople internationally. And I'm often asked for one-on-one or private coaching, but it does involve a substantial investment. For that reason, I've recently developed the Sales Pro Insider Network community. It works like this. We get together twice a month on Tuesday nights from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. At the first session of the month, it's you and me, with me taking your questions and giving you the advice and help you need to both prospect and sell more effectively. At the second session of the month, we'll have a guest coach speaking on a fascinating topic that helps sellers like you and me. And of course, we'll do group coaching then too. The best part is the investment is just $27 for the first month, and there's no long-term contract at all. In fact, you can cancel at any time. Go to crushsalesgoals.com. That's crushsalesgoals.com. I hope to see you there. I'm very excited because our guest this Tuesday is Nikki Gangemi, who's an NLP practitioner, and she's going to be talking about how to have better conversations and increase your sales through NLP. And if any of our listeners are interested, I'm actually happy to give you a free pass. You can DM me through the Sales Pro Network or through my email address. Write me an email. I'll send you back a free pass. We're talking to Susan Cashion, who's a sales consultant and fractional VP of Sales with Sales Acceleration. Susie, we're just a couple of days away from the start of the next quarter. I can't believe how fast the year is going. It seems that every year is faster. And I often find that salespeople wait till it's way too late, until the year's almost over. It's October, it's November. And then I start getting calls with panicked salespeople who are, what am I going to do? I'm not going to hit my quota. Well, to me, you waited way too long. You can't wait till the end of the year if you're not going to hit your quota. And with one quarter gone in 2024, I mean, it's just like 8 more days. What should salespeople be doing right now to give themselves the best chance to either achieve or exceed their quota, especially if they're a little bit behind already, or maybe a lot behind? What can they do now?
Activity. They've got to bump up their activity, because whatever they did in the last quarter is a result of, where they're at today is a result of what they did in their last quarter. So they've got to make up for last quarter if they, didn't hit their quota. And so I'd say first and foremost is activity. Absolutely. And then taking a look at their pipeline and selling more, touching outreach and touching base with the higher value deals, of course, so that you can, close higher revenue and bring that in. It just really goes back to activity and having a discipline, the difference between where you're spending your time working on your business versus in your business. And you need to work on your business. And that's really the prospecting aspect of it. Constantly every day dropping new potential clients into your pipeline.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I think is so important. And I just got asked the other day by an organization, would I come in and give a talk about how to have a great Q2, a great second quarter? And I said, I'd be happy to come in and talk, except guess what? It's too late. If you didn't set up your second quarter in Q1, then you're not going to have a great second quarter. You can set up Q3, but you're probably not going to do it in Q2 unless you have an incredibly short sales cycle. I, like you, sell a number of different services. So I'll just take sales training, for example. When I sell sales training to organizations, I have an 8-week sales cycle. So I could possibly meet somebody in the next few days and close them in Q2, but more than likely it's going to happen in Q3. For even if I meet somebody now, I have to have 3 meetings and there's a bunch of stuff that has to happen. So you're always really selling into the future. And if you have not set up Q2, you're probably lost. But that doesn't mean give up. It means dig in harder right now, do the work that you probably didn't do in Q1, so that at least you can try to pull out Q2 and hopefully set yourself up for a great Q3 and a great Q4. But again, it comes back to that consistency, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And another thing is going to warm prospects and cross-selling and upselling. So somebody that it was a former buyer of your product or service, that is such a ripe potential future customer, because they already like, know, and use your product or service. So go and try and cross or upsell to them.
Yeah. I always say there's gold in your database. Just look at your previous clients. You look at your current clients and ask for referrals. You said it before. There's nothing better than a well-made introduction. Ask people for. I always say ask everybody for referrals, because I get that question a lot. Who should I ask for referrals? Just my happy clients? No. You're on a sales call and you're not closing the deal. Ask for referrals, even though they're not going to use you. They might know somebody else who will. And if you've done your job properly, if you establish rapport and you come across as likable and trustable and professional, they should have no hesitation about recommending you. In fact, they might even feel obligated because they're not doing business with you. But it's doing that stuff to set you up for success that so many people miss. And again, it's not rocket science.
It's not.
Yep.
It's the basics, and getting back to basics and discerning, is your activity today working on your business or in your business? In your business is constantly dealing with fire drills and unproductive lost time. So I think working on your business is more forward thinking and, adding to your pipeline, constantly prospecting.
Yeah, I love listening to you, because everything you say is a pearl of wisdom. The term I use is RGAs. Are you focused on revenue generating activities, or are you wasting your time chasing stuff that's never going to come through? So often prospects are saying no, but they're not using the word no. And so salespeople, because they're optimistic that everything's going to work out, and they have to be, but it blinds them to when people are saying no by not returning their calls, not returning their emails. Well, guess what? That means no. At least for right now, it does. And you need to focus on the people who are returning your calls, are taking meetings with you, and are interested in moving forward. Too often, salespeople are chasing their tail, which is why, to me, you need a good pipeline management system, which should be in your CRM. And you need a manager like yourself who's working with them regularly to evaluate each deal and make sure they are still consistently prospecting for new stuff. Quite often, and I'm sure you find this too, because we deal, while I deal with some large companies, I'm also in the SMB market. I find that so often salespeople and organizations are selling a product or service that truly is a commodity. And I don't like to use that as an excuse, but sometimes it is a commodity. So you offer a value proposition workshop. What do we need to know about developing? Well, first explain what is a UVP and how do we go about developing what? What do we need to know about that?
A value proposition, again, goes back to a company's core story, who they are and who they want to be. Like, what are their values? What are the features and benefits of their product or service? And in the culture, in what they want to actually, what are the emotions that they want to evoke in their potential target audience? And so once you know that, it makes it so much easier to identify your ideal client profile and, target the clients that you want to, that your product or service will resonate with.
Okay, but you also mentioned a value proposition, not just the company, but what makes us different? What makes us unique? So, how do you do that when a company is selling something that's really a commodity? And here's something that I find quite often. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. Quite often, organizations say, "Oh, our unique selling proposition, or what makes us different, it's our great customer service." Well, I'm shaking my head for those who are listening on the podcast, because so many companies say, "Oh, we give great customer service." And I always say, in your own life, where you're the customer, how many of the companies that you buy from actually deliver great customer service? And the answer is usually none or very few. And in fact, to me, if you deliver just good customer service, you're ahead of most companies. But because so many people expect bad customer service from most of the companies they deal with, when we as an organization use customer service as our unique value proposition or our differentiator, people go, "Yeah, sure." I say, if you're going to use customer service as your differentiator, you better be able to give great examples as to why. So other than customer service, is there a way that people can develop, what makes us different, what makes us better in a commoditized market?
Yeah, sure. If you're selling on price with a commodity item, yeah, customer service is obviously the usual go-to, but loyalty programs, referral programs, really, I would say, we actually offered this at one of the clients that I was working with recently, where they gave better terms instead of coming down on price because the margins were so lean to begin with. We actually gave better terms. So if it was 30 days, maybe you can extend it to 45 days. There's obviously a cost of revenue to the business on that, but look to get creative so that you can differentiate yourself. If all things are the same as your competition, those are the types of things that you can do in different areas that will help to engage your customer.
Yeah. I also advise salespeople that if you are selling a commodity, when you are dealing with your prospect or your customer, help them sell better. Give them the advice. You're a professional salesperson. Advise them on how they can help sell their product better, because maybe your competition isn't doing that. When you do good things for people, they tend to want to do good things for you. So I think that's another way that they can actually differentiate. And let's look. There's two parts in my brain on a lot of subjects, and one of them is I don't care what the difference is. You got to go out and sell anyways. But the truth of the matter is, if you can't come up with a differentiator, then it almost always does boil down to price. And if there's one thing I hate selling on, is price. Because if you sell on price, you're going to die on price. So there's got to be something more. And it's not just about, oh, you get me. Now, I understand why salespeople say that, but what's the benefit of that? What do you get out of doing business with me? That I'm a nice guy, that I'm funny? Okay, great. That's not going to put money in your pocket. So it's really something that's important for every organization to get very, very clear on, so that they can educate their prospect, so that the prospect chooses to do business with them.
And I would also, Jeff, say that it's asking great question. What is important to your buyer? So what's it going to take to get this deal across the finish line, right? And understanding what's important to them. So you can talk about loyalty programs, referral programs, discounts on the back end, gift cards, things like that. But maybe that's not important to them. Maybe white glove service, which, kind of speaks to customer service, but, taking it a step further, where you're never going to get a recorded message. You're always going to get either a salesperson or a customer service rep, to provide a much better customer experience.
Yeah, it's also important to be very clear on what it is you're really selling. I worked with a company that sold tools and parts. One of the things they sold was drill bits, but they weren't really selling drill bits. They're selling holes. You've got to know what it is that you're really selling. People don't need drill bits. They need holes. One of the things that you say, which I really liked, I was checking out your LinkedIn feed. You say that connection is currency. And I know you network with some very professional women entrepreneurs. What do you mean by connection is currency? And what do you get from networking in this way?
Well, I think human connection actually creates a currency between people. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. And so once you build that foundation through networking and getting to know your potential buyers, you're able to create a currency. Sometimes it's financial and sometimes it's emotional, and it's just developing that trust. So I love that statement, connection is currency, because it could be financial and end up helping you to close a deal, or it could just be that relationship, establishing a stronger foundation so that you're going to end up doing business with people that you know, like, and trust.
Yeah, I've been in the same networking group for 18 years. And I think that might be why I was so attracted to that statement, that connection is currency. And you're so right. It's not just about the referrals that they can give you, although certainly the reason we all join organizations like that is so that we can give and get referrals, because we've said it a couple of times already. A well-made introduction on a referral leads you halfway to a sale. It makes your life easy. But certainly, I hate to be corny, but the networking group I'm in, it's 36 years old. I've been in it for 18 years. They're like family. It really is a connection like a family. And it's way more than just the referrals that I get from it. And I do get 30% of my business from referrals from that organization, but I get business intelligence. I'm on Long Island, and it's a very tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. And more than once, I've had somebody in the group say, oh, I'm just going to be talking to this company or that company, and somebody else, Sam said, just be careful, they don't pay. There's business intelligence.
Insights.
And each of the people that I network are in the group I'm in, it's exclusive. So, I'm the only sales expert. There's a lawyer, people like that. I have a group of experts that I can go to when I need help. And more importantly, that I can introduce to my clients and my prospects to help them. Because when you do that, of course, it makes you look good. So I'm with you 1,000,000%. It's a real community. And if you're not surrounding yourself with great people that can help you and that you can help, I think you're making a big mistake, because it's very difficult to go it alone, especially right now, and especially in uncertain times. You offer fractional VPs of sales services, just like I offer fractional sales manager services. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of working with a person like you or me? And is it right for every organization?
I think it depends on where they're at in their growth stage and, what phase they're in. So it's great for startups. I work with companies that are between, say, a well-funded startup or maybe 3 million to, say, 65 million. And what I find is anything greater than, say, 65 million, it really commands having an inside full-time person. But the fractional space and what we do, it allows these companies who, one, either don't necessarily need it, two, can't afford it, access to professionals like us that have that world-class training and or expertise that they would otherwise not be able to afford or have access to. So is there any client that it wouldn't be right for? Again, one that requires, like maybe one that's expanded their sales team and they've got feet on the street nationally, right? And you need somebody, a coach or a sales leader, to be out in the field. Well, that's not the right format for a fractional leader. So once you get to a point and stage in your growth cycle as a company and you're so much larger and you've got this wide net across the country, sometimes that commands a full-time individual. Some of the benefits are the fact that, we have a completely different perspective. We are not emotionally involved and we don't have to worry about the politics, right? If you want to keep your job, you're going to sometimes tell your boss what he wants to hear, not necessarily what he needs to hear, right? So the conversations, I call them crucial conversations, that you and I have with business owners are what they need to hear. And so on the back end, we're not worried necessarily about losing our job. That's why they've brought us in, for, a second set of eyes and a different perspective, and to help them think about their business in a different way.
Yep. Again, so on the money. I was having a conversation with a new client just yesterday, and I'm actually working with their sales manager. I'm acting more as his assistant sales manager, but he was I was giving him some advice about a conversation he needs to have with the owner of the company. And he goes, Jeff, I don't know if I can do that. I said, blame it on me. Just blame it on me. Say, Jeff told me to do this and I actually said, I'm not going to use it, but I said, because I don't give an F. If he wants to fire me, I don't care. I have got 15 other clients waiting for me for my schedule to open up so I can get to them. I don't care. Just do it. Whereas an employee can't really say some of the things that you and I can. And what I find is, at least in my case, in every instance where I'm brought in as a fractional sales leader, the salespeople are reporting directly to the owner of the company, who A, doesn't know how to manage salespeople, and B, is wasting way too much of their time trying to, instead of running their organization. So you and I can come in, relieve them of all that responsibility. We actually know what we're talking about. And at least in my case, I will get to a point where I go, you know what? I've done everything I possibly can on an outsourced basis. It's time for us to bring in somebody to replace me full time. And I'll actually help them recruit and hire my replacement. Usually they're like, what are you doing? You're talking yourself out of a job. I've done everything I can. I'm not looking to take your money if I'm not adding value. It's time to bring on a permanent person. And certainly you mentioned, it is way less expensive. It's under $100,000 a year with me to bring me on as the outsourced sales manager. A guy I replaced myself recently is getting a salary of $225,000 plus a package that's going to put him at $350,000. So now, but I replaced myself with a full-time VP of sales who's highly experienced. I took them as far as I can go. Time for me to move on.
Exactly. I call it being a really good therapist. Because, bad therapists will keep you on their couch for life, right? But hey, let's come in. Here's your pain points. Let's solve your problems, fulfill a need. And then you do work yourself out of a job. I mean, that is the goal. You get them to a point where their growth is so significant. You've expanded their team, and now they need a full-time leader to come in and take over for you, which I also help to hire those individuals.
Yeah, I taught my kids this ADTRT. Always do the right thing. It's going to work out. And I laughed when you said therapist, because when I was much younger, I was in therapy for about 2.5 years. And one morning I woke up, I knew I had to go see my therapist. And I had this revelation. I walked, I said, I'm so excited. I figured something out today. His name was Ben. I said, Ben, I figured something out. He goes, what'd you figure out? I said, I figured out that for 2.5 years, you've been teaching me that the only one who can help me is myself. He goes, yeah. I said, I'm done. See ya.
You're fired.
Yeah. Thanks for your help. I'm out of here. One of the things I get asked for a lot is help with recruiting salespeople, because there's certainly an out for that. And salespeople, certainly on an interview, you can't interview salespeople like you do everybody else. So what advice do you have for either companies that are looking to hire great people? And I'd also like to hear, what advice do you have for salespeople who are looking for a great gig, like when they interview?
Okay. So from a company perspective, I always encourage my clients to do an assessment. I talked about skill and will. Will is not something you can teach. And so it's so important to understand, do they have the critical sales DNA, which is the skill, right? And then the will is motivation. So if an assessment comes back and their will is, really low, or they don't have it, then that's a definitely no-go. So it provides with an objective versus subjectivity, which so much of interviewing is subjectivity and or who you know and so forth. So there can be professional and personal bias in the interviewing process, but assessments go around that and actually tell you what you need to know. That's one thing for companies. Another is that the compensation plan, in order to attract the right person, has to be right. And so I always counsel my clients to do a 50-50, minimum 50% base salary, and then potential for 50% variable pay. Yep. It could be 60-40. Obviously, in states where the cost of living is so significant, it might be a little bit higher on the base, but you want to reward the right behaviors. So if you're giving a salesperson 80% base pay, that's not necessarily going to motivate them, right? And you're not
lazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I also do not like the concept of unlimited PTO. I know that was started to become the tray chic thing. I want people to take vacation. And when you give this unlimited PTO, in sales, you can't just take 2-3 weeks off consistently, right? And so what ends up happening is, if you don't have a defined number of days that they've either accrued and or can take off, they don't take it. And salespeople need that recovery time to decompress. And it's so important that they take it. But this concept of, everyone got scared, back when I was in corporate, of taking time off, because if it was an unlimited time, it was like, am I taking too much time? I'm going away again. So anyways, I like a very well-defined compensation plan, and PTO being a part of that and having that defined as well. I think also what attracts people is an emotion to a company, and that really is defined by their culture. So one unique thing that a client of mine recently did was put together what it's like to work here. And it was a video, and they showed a day in the life of all the different departments and why the employees loved working there. So that was really kind of a cool element. And I think it's great during the interviewing process to send that to somebody with a link, and they can watch it and see what it's going to be like to work for that company, which really helps to articulate their vision, mission, and values.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great idea. I love that. And by the way, I love what you said about skill and will. I always I look to hire people who have the characteristics that I can't teach them. I can't teach you to be competitive. I can't teach you to be honest. I can't teach you to be friendly. I can give you some words, but I can't teach you to be driven. I can't teach you to want to make a lot of money. I can teach you how to sell, and I can teach you how to sell better, but I can't teach you how to want to succeed. So yeah, those are the things I look for. And one of our listeners is asking, what assessment do you use?
OMG, Objective Management Group.
That's an assessment, like a DISC assessment or something like that.
Yeah, DISC is more, like behavioral personality. No, it measures skill and will. OMG is the company, and they have individual onboarding assessments as well as sales team assessments once you're already on board. So there's two that I use, the onboarding one, and then assessing an existing team's skills so that you can define what sales training they need. And I can hire you, Jeff, to do that.
Sounds good to me. I'm looking at the clock, and as usual, I have 8 million more questions because you're fascinating. You know your stuff. How about this? What's working? What advice do you have for how people should be prospecting? Any particular things that you think they should be doing? What methods are working better than others, in your opinion?
I think AI really has helped because it's cut down the prospecting time and doing the cold outreach. So if you can land a meeting with a client where there's a warm introduction, that's definitely going to help with efficiencies. I think also educational selling, which is selling the value and the outcome. I gave that example of the dentist sales reps, really selling the outcome and the value. It's consistency and touch points. So, don't think that, hey, I reached out and I got a no or no response, that 1, 2, or 3 times is actually going to land you that conversation. You just have to keep reaching out. Again, going back to asking for referrals and warm introductions. So that's that. I've got one other story. Let's see. I'll make this really fast. Really cool story on prospecting. So I was leading a team in the entertainment business, and one of the guys was trying to build out his book of business. He was in Nashville, and as you know, that's like the country music mecca of the United States, right? And he was selling audio, video, visual, and lighting equipment to pop stars and universities, houses of worship, for small live sound venues, and then in-house recording studios for recording artists. And what was really cool was he thought outside the box on a great way to prospect. So this story really just speaks to think of new and different ways to prospect. He actually bought a black car, like a really nice, souped up car. It was a Mercedes. And he actually started driving for Uber to and from the airport because he knew that his target audience, the country music pop star, would be only using a black car, right? And so he would shuttle these people, ask for referrals, have great conversations in the car, a captive audience with these pop stars and or rising pop stars. And that's how he built a continual referral base in his business, was meeting them by why he's working, driving Uber. Creative,
Wow.
right?
Talk about thinking outside the box. I love that. It's brilliant. Yeah. Go where the prospects are. Fish where the fish are biting. I love that. Susie, I hate to say this, but we are completely out of time. Before we go, I'd like to share my screen. And if you would tell people, and remember, this will be a podcast, some people can see us, but for those who are interested in contacting you, what's the best way to reach you, or what are some of the ways to reach you?
So my email is scashion, CASHION, at Sales Acceleration. That's SalesXCeleration.com. I know it's a mouthful. Phone number is 949-545-8570. You can go to growthwiseconsultinginc.com as well. And then if you are watching this, there's my LinkedIn QR code, or just connect with me, Susan Cashion, on LinkedIn.
Great. And would you like to spell your last name one more time for those who are listening? Because LinkedIn is usually a very easy way to reach people like you and me.
Yes. So Cashion, it's like fashion with a C. Cashion.
There you go. Well, Susan Cashion Fashion, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance so generously. I truly appreciate it. And I will end as I always do. Please, guys, remember, sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Susie. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff.